Hello everybody and welcome to another Doctor Who review. This time I'm reviewing an 11th Doctor story. It's the Crimson Horror! That's the best you're going to get because I can't do a North Yorkshire accent, but there we are. That obviously comes from one of the characters. He likes calling it the Crimson Horror in the story, which is quite fun in itself. This is the 11th episode of Series 7 of the revived series of Doctor Who, starring Matt Smith as the 11th Doctor and Jenna Coleman as Clara Oswald. So we'll go through some of the interesting points here, and then we'll go through the characters of the story. Doctor and Clara land in 1893 North Yorkshire. They end up at the river, finding that there's been bodies covered in red, washed up. He goes to the mortuary. Does an investigation about the poison. There's a whole question about how the last image of somebody dying is left on the retina, and it was explained with some pseudoscience saying that basically the chemical's been used to allow that kind of to happen, which is quite interesting. So the Doctor and Clara pose as prospective people to join Mrs. Gilliflower's collective for a better life. She's basically evangelizing a better life, but the plan is to basically destroy the earth and get these people coming back, get these people reserved for a few months and then come back into life. And the idea that Gilliflower will use a rocket with the secretions of Mr. Sweet, who is a red leech, who is symbiotically attached to Gilliflower on the chest, and he'll use that poison to poison the earth. The people who have been preserved will be then revived and live in a cleaner, nicer planet. The usual, let's get rid of all the... kind of a Victorian environmental message to some respect. It's weird, it's strange, it's odd. It's very Doctor Who. And the Doctor, Clara, Vastra, Strax and Jenny stop it. The Paternoster gang come in because they've been approached because of funny goings-on up in North Yorkshire. They come up and investigate. Jenny finds the Doctor in a kind of partially stupefied state. He'd been kept by Mrs. Gilliflower's daughter, Ada, who has been blinded through previous experimentation and notices the Doctor as one of the refused, discarded bodies from the process that went wrong, saves the Doctor, keeps him locked up. The Doctor doesn't think there's a problem there. He actually shows compassion to Ada later on, which is really interesting. Anybody else would think, you kept me cooped up, you're a monster yourself. But no, she's doing it. There's a good heart of gold there, which is really interesting to see. And I like that element of it. So there's that story plot. It goes along. To be fair, most of the main cast are actually quite funny and quite good. A lot of good things I liked about this. It's a romp. It's fun. I know some people don't like it. It is weak on script. I'm not going to turn around and say it's not. It is weak on script. But unlike the Crotons last week, where it's weak to the point of you can take your brain out, this one is weak to the point of it's still enjoyable, but it's not got any major substance. It runs along at a massive pace, even for a 45-minuter. A lot goes on very quickly. Some of the elements I like really are the elements of the flashback the Doctor has once Jenny saves him. That was done very well. There seems to be obsession which starts to seep in a bit more in Capaldi's era as well, where they put a caption of the year and the date, where they are and the date, very in interesting places. This one's more subtle. It's the opening shot where you see the street, or North Yorkshire street, and it's up on the roof lintel. So it's an interesting start to it. The direction itself by Saul Metzstein is quite fun. It's light-hearted. He works the comedy elements with the Paternoster gang work quite well. There's a couple of funny things here. I also didn't realise this is the Tom Tom joke story. I didn't realise this is the one. I thought it was the snowmen, but it's not. It's the Tom Tom joke story, which makes me smile because I like that anyway. Strax gets lost trying to find Gilliflower's factory, and the street urchin comes along and tells him how it works, describing the directions based as you would on a sat-nav. And then he's asked his name and it's Thomas, and I think that's actually quite funny. So the Doctor turns out to be Ada, played by Rachel Sterling's monster. The Doctor ends up not being processed properly with the poison that has been used to beautify the people that have been kept preserved. The whole plot idea is interesting, light but interesting. Keep them preserved. The Doctor survives it because he's not human, and he's kind of like a zombie covered in red stuff. How he revives is not quite made clear. They utilize the sonic screwdriver to revive himself. They don't when Clara gets revived later on. It's not entirely clear how the revival process works. It's not really explained. It's kind of a deus ex machina in that respect. Strax has his quips, as always. The funniest one I like is the one where he's gone a bit mad when Doctor and Jenny are about to be overtaken by some of the workers for Mrs. Gillyflower. And he comes in all guns blazing, literally. And Vastra tells him off and says, "Have you been on the jelly sherbet fancies?" And Strax, like a little boy, goes, "No." Vastra says, go to the carriage and wait there." And he makes a comment as he walks off, "I'll go clean my grenades." These little comedy elements of Strax are brilliant. The flashback sequence when they're travelling back in time and Clara pulls him up for not getting to London but to Yorkshire. He turned around and said he's a lot better at doing these trips now than he was, because he was with a gobby Australian who he took ages to get back to Heathrow, obviously going to refer to Tegan. And they hear a scream at that point because somebody's in trouble. And he turns around and says, "Brave heart, Clara." So it's a little reference to the Fifth Doctor's famous phrase for Tegan, which is actually quite funny. Then we have when the Doctor faces Mrs. Gillyflower later on. He first comes into her office where she's just changed the organ to the control panel for the rocket, and there is the quip that the Doctor has saying, "I'm the Doctor, you're nuts, and I'm going to stop you," he says to Gillyflower. Very projection, I think is probably the best way of putting it. It's fun. It's interesting to see that. And then, of course, Mr. Sweet himself, which you'll get to in a minute. Matt Smith as the Doctor. He's in peak 11th Doctor here. The fact that he's able to survive the process is interesting. The preservation process is interesting in some respects, but he's a Time Lord, we know that. We just take that as written, that the Doctor would survive. As I say, it's not very clear how he revives himself with the sonic screwdriver being used, but he does. He's fully Doctor, fully floundering, fully over the place, manic. Usual 11th Doctor, lots of fun to watch. We've then got Clara, who actually benefits from not being in it as much. This Clara part of the story, they play on the mystery, because obviously the Paternoster Scan were there for the Victorian Clara in the Snowmen, and they're questioning who this Clara is and everything else. Jenna Coleman, what she gets, as always, she does it, it's brilliant, it works, she acts it well. There's not much there for Clara. She's kind of like, she is the companion, but she doesn't do much. She has one brilliant moment about the chimney that doesn't have any smoke coming out of it, which is where the rocket comes up to, where the rocket will come out from the factory. Apart from that, she doesn't do much. She's kind of like a sideshow, really. She's just a tag-along in this one. She doesn't have much. And to that benefit, it makes a difference a little bit. It actually makes it a little bit better. Then you've got the guest stars. You've got Diana Rigg as Mrs. Gillyflower, who chews the scenery to hell, maybe? Well, to Mr. Sweet, anyway. Choose the scenery like anything. It's obvious she's enjoying playing the role. Absolutely full-on nasty woman. The bit when the Doctor turns around and says to Gillyflower when he confronts her, the secretions and the poison that the red leech is given out in the wrong hands could be very dangerous, and she turns around and says, "Look, I've got the wrong hands." I love that. That's this kind of... She knows she's doing wrong. She knows she feels she's right. She wants this. And it's kind of like... I just love the characterization, and what a great guest star to have a Diana Rigg, and she plays it with plum. Also who plays it with plum is her daughter, Rachel Serling, who plays Ada. The fact she's got to do blind acting here, she plays it so softly. She's obviously emotionally damaged, because that's obvious through the story. She's obviously physically damaged with the blindness and the scarring around the eyes, and that's actually quite effective how it's all done. But I like the character that she plays. She's a nice counterbalance to Diana Rigg's character. The best bit and the most satisfying bit for me is the bit when she whacks Mr. Sweet with the stick later in the story. that works for me. It really does. This whole thing about this Mr. Sweet, that she's never known who he is. He doesn't seem to come to the table all the time. She doesn't know who Mr. Sweet is, really, according to her mum. And this whole fact of her being manipulated by her mother, because obviously she cares for her mother all this time. The satisfaction she gets from killing Mr. Sweet is actually quite satisfying for me. You've then got the Paternoster gang. The one who doesn't do a lot is Vastra in this one. Neve McIntosh plays it brilliantly, as always. She is effectively the leader, but she doesn't do much. It's actually Jenny and Strax to get a bit more to do in this one. Catherine Stewart gets a lot to do in this one. She's the investigator. She's investigating the whole thing with Gillyflower and finds the Doctor. So I like that part of the adventure where Jenny's actually got something to do, because the later story she's kind of posing most of the time, literally posing in deep breath, but we'll get to that when the review comes up. But she actually gets something to do in this one. It's actually good to see the character and see how she works, and it's fun. I like it. We've then got Dan Starkey as Strax. He is the comic relief. He does, I mean, obviously the Centaurans have been tarnished with that sort of comedic character thanks to Strax, but he does it with such aplomb. It's so fun to see, and it's really enjoyable seeing that being played out again. As I say, Neve McIntosh is fine as Vastra, but there's not much for her to do, and it does show in this one. As I say, the direction's fine. It's not really action orientated in that respect, but I like some of the filming and the way the suggestion is made with some of the stuff for budgetary reasons. The smashing windows and that you don't see, which is fun. It's a very playful direction from Sol Metstein, and it works for me, and I do enjoy watching it just for the fun of it. It is weak, but it's fun. And this is one of Mark Gatiss' scripts. It's one of his better ones, but Mark Gatiss can be very good. He can be very bad. He's not often in the middle, and this is a middle one. Because Cold War wasn't exactly ideal early in the season with the Ice Warriors. It was okay. He then does The Empress of Mars later on. I think that's his last credited story. That's okay. But this one's actually quite fun. It's one of the fun ones, because he can be hit and miss, Mark Gatiss, with some of the writings. I've said that in The Idiot's Lantern before when I've done that. My favourite Mark Gatiss script is still The Unquiet Dead, which is the one all the way back in Series 9, in the first series of the 9th Doctor. Because it's in the Victorian era, he knows how to write for Victorian era. And that's where the strength comes in of the script, because the characterizations, the way things are expected and written, and the whole setting works. This fantastical setting, it does kind of work, but it's not fully nuanced. It's not fully strong. So there is bits and pieces that aren't quite as they should be, but it's certainly a fun script overall. Music-wise, Murray Gold is very understated for most of it, and then at the end with the crescendo, we get Clara's theme, and we get the situation with I Am the Doctor being the literal leitmotif that's used, more or less the same variation, every story in Series 7, and it does grate a little bit. It's not pompous parping as he normally would do, but it's not understated either. It is an in-between one, this one. It really is. One criticism I have, which I'll keep mostly for Nightmare and Silver, is the last 3 minutes when Clara returns home to the kids, and the whole thing with Angie and Artie finding out that Clara has been time travelling. It doesn't sit right for me. It's kind of like a very quickly rushed thing to lead into the next episode. Clara's supposed to be a nanny. She doesn't seem to do much nannying. It's a weird character trait to try and put her in, and it isn't really resolved until she becomes the teacher in Coal Hill School in Day of the Doctor, of the sort of role that she can do. However, I will leave that criticism of Nightmare and Silver and the plot lines and what led up to it for that review when it comes out. But for the review of the Crimson Horror, I actually will give this a generous 3.5 TARDISes out of 5. Let's see how that stacks up against all the other stories I've reviewed so far in the Doctor Who reviews. This list is getting quite big for 3.5 TARDISes out of 5. I may have to look at doing things a little bit differently for it going forward. But 3.5 TARDISes out of 5, the Crimson Horror shares the limelight with the Aztecs, Vengeance and Varos, Amy's Choice, the Trial of a Time Lord, the Christmas Invasion, the Macra Terror, the Runaway Bride, and the Sunmakers. At the bottom is still Time Lash and Sleep No More with 2.5 TARDISes out of 5. At the top, We still have 6 stories at 4.5 TARDISes out of 5. The Hamleys Patrol, Inferno, The Day of the Doctor, The Caves of Androzani, The Tomb of the Cybermen, and Dalek. That's it. Thanks guys for watching as always. Leave a comment down below. Tell me what you think of the Crimson Horror. Do you like it? Do you not? All comments are appreciated. If you like this video as a whole, don't forget to like it and share it with the hashtag teamstructor. And if you like the channel as a whole, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and the notifications bell so you know when a new video comes out. General, new video every Sunday at 4 PM GMT. Now, if you want to help further and support the channel, you can go to the Patreon at patreon.com/Deanstructor. For as little as $1 or £1 a month, you can help support the channel and help it grow. So go to patreon.com/Deanstructor. That's it from me. Next week we have a Streamstructor as always. I hope to see you then at 6 PM GMT. But until then, thanks guys for watching and I'll see you later.